My parents mocked my construction job for years. Now I make more than both combined and just left them out of my will entirely. I am a 34-year-old male who owns a construction company in Phoenix that specializes in high-end backyard improvements, pools, outdoor kitchens, fire features and the like. Most people don't realize how hard it was to develop our firm. I began with only me, a used truck, and maxed out credit cards. I took whatever job that paid, including deck repairs, fence installation, and concrete patching. I worked 18-hour days, 7 days a week. My hands were permanently discolored with concrete dust and my back felt like it was tied together by duct tape. I slept in my truck on job sites during the week to save money on petrol. My bedroom was the cab of a 2008 Ford F-150 with 173,000 miles and a heater that only worked half the time. Winter evenings in Arizona aren't as pleasant as they seem when you're sleeping in a metal box. I lost my residence after a client failed to pay me for a $12,000 patio project. The guy complained the stonework didn't match the photo, despite the fact that the contract stated that natural stone varies in color. I learnt an expensive lesson about payment plans and deposits. A lawyer requested $5,000 simply to begin the procedure, which I did not have. I secured a small pool installation for a retired couple. Before then, my portfolio consisted of phone photos of decks and patios. They took a gamble since their grandson played on the same high school football team as I did. Family connections will only give you a chance. You still need to deliver. They recommended me to their neighbor, who then directed me to their son. Networking 101. I hired my first employee, Diego, who is still with us now. I spotted him working as a day worker outside of Home Depot. He had more talent than half of the contractors I'd met. He only needed documents and a chance. I personally paid for his certification classes. Best investment I've ever made. Supply chain chaos almost killed us. Lumber prices jumped overnight. I had to explain to clients why their quotes had suddenly spiked 40%. We lost half of our projects. I began chasing supplies as if it were a competitive sport, driving to suppliers at 4:30 a.m. to be first in line, asking for favors from guys I'd helped out. We traded materials with other contractors to ensure that neither of us failed. One week, I drove 1,200 miles throughout Arizona, Nevada, and New Mexico in search of specific tiles that a client insisted on. I slept about 20 hours that week. The client had no idea. To them, it was simply on time. A local news anchor hired us for a little assignment and then reported on it. Our Instagram followers tripled in a week. We began focusing solely on high-end projects. I passed down a $50,000 makeover in favor of a $120,000 build that would make us stand out. It was a hazardous decision, but playing it safe would not get me out of that truck. The renovation client cursed me out for passing and then came back later, offering to pay double my original quote. We now have 20 people, 3 crews working simultaneously, and a 3-month waiting list. Last quarter we completed $430,000 in projects with a 22% profit margin, our greatest quarter ever. By Phoenix contractor standards, that is the major leagues. I do not drive Lamborghini or post Rolexes. My flexibility is efficient. Every foreman has a company card with spending limits that I monitor in real time. We upgraded to Outearn. Client quotes, change orders, and project schedules all in one dashboard, reducing admin time by almost half. I fired a guy who showed up twice, smelling like vape juice and making excuses. I explained to the crew exactly why. If a guy can't show up on time, sober, and prepared, he's not only harming himself, he's jeopardizing all of our salaries. That is not drama. That is policy. Every dime in my account was acquired by working harder than anyone else. No subsidies, no family loans, no assistance. This is significant because my family continues to treat me as if I were a broke adolescent rather than someone who makes more than both parents together. I met Sophie, the client's female interior designer who was collaborating with us on the outdoor kitchen finishing, at one of those high-end projects. She's smart as hell, beautiful, and refreshingly forthright. None of this is playing hard to get crap. She contacted me about the granite samples and said, "You free on Friday? I know a place with decent tacos." She grew up with her grandma. Her parents left when she was 8. She attended design school while caring for her grandmother, who had dementia. The woman understands what real struggle looks like. When we first started dating, she would occasionally stop by job sites with coffee for the entire crew, not just me. That is how I knew she was different. She respected the job itself, not simply the outcome. Quick family breakdown. Dad, Frank, supervises a grocery chain district and earns roughly $85,000. Linda, the mother, is an elementary school administrator. Chelsea, her sister, claims to be a marketing consultant but hasn't worked with a genuine customer in years. She lives in my parents' basement and pretends to manage a business empire through her Instagram account. She left the room just as it was, complete with high school participation awards and boy band posters. She just added a ring light and a girl boss sign to her daily encouragement videos, which received 12 views. Growing up, the familial dynamic was very evident. Chelsea could not do wrong, and I could not do right. They termed her decision to drop out of college and travel to Europe brave self-discovery. When I worked construction over the summers to pay for business school, they referred to it as settling for manual labor. Dad would walk through our job sites, pointing out errors that were essentially incomplete work. He still does it. He went to the $300,000 lake house project we were working on and told the homeowner, right in front of him, that the slope on that deck looked odd. It was not. We were in the process of laser leveling the supports. The homeowner was hesitant until I showed him the designs and equipment. Mom wasn't doing any better. When I made the dean's list in business school for 3 semesters in a row, she commented, "If only you had applied yourself like this in high school." During college, I worked 30 hours each week. In high school, I worked 15 hours a week while still participating in sports. Chelsea has been a disaster from day one. She proclaimed she was becoming plant-based as soon as Mom put the turkey on the table. She made a show of eating only side dishes and gagging anytime someone sliced into the meat. This is the same Chelsea who I saw devour a bacon cheeseburger the week before. When I commented, "Funny how your plant-based diet includes those leather boots you bought last week," she hurled cranberry sauce at me. I simply brushed it off and continued eating, while everyone pretended not to notice. Another time, at my cousin's wedding, she cornered me to explain how my company was harming the environment since concrete manufacture emits carbon dioxide. This comes from someone who takes 40-minute showers and keeps every light on in the home. I asked how much she enjoyed driving her SUV to the salon for her monthly blowout. She did not talk to me for months. The most calm months of my life. The hypocrisy is what bothers me. She preaches about sustainability but buys quick fashion every week. Talks about economic disparity but hasn't had an actual job in years. Posts about hustle culture while sleeping until noon every day. Sophie first met my family at Christmas last year. Chelsea arrived with a tiny dude wearing a turtleneck whom she introduced as her business partner. They spent the entire dinner discussing their new wellness platform, which promised to disrupt the mindfulness space. The software allegedly merged meditation, Bitcoin, and social media. The startup equivalent of putting random buzzwords into a blender. When I asked basic questions about revenue models or user acquisition costs, she became defensive and said, "Not everything is about money." I laughed and said, "It's hard to make a difference from Mom's basement." Dad nearly choked on his water. After dinner, Chelsea cornered Sophie in the kitchen while I was getting beverages. When I stepped in, Chelsea was saying something about Logan's building phase not lasting long, and Sophie needing to have a backup plan in case everything breaks apart. Sophie simply grinned and replied, "Actually, I have seen his novels. Maybe you should seek him for investment advice instead of whatever that turtleneck guy is selling you." Chelsea stormed off, and Sophie only smirked at me. That's my gal. I've always despised family reunions, but skipping them leads to weeks of texting about how important I am now. So I show up, put my head down, and count down the minutes until I can leave. I called Dad to inquire about plans. His tone was unusually nonchalant. "We're only doing a tiny bit this year, your mother wants to keep it low-key." I assumed it meant the normal meal at their house with flowers, nothing spectacular. Before hanging up, he said, "Don't bother coming this time. There's no need for gifts either. Concentrate on your business. The trip from Phoenix is a pain in the ass." I had a fleeting sense of relief. Perhaps they finally realized I was building something legitimate, but years of family dynamics had trained me to be wary. I was having beers with my friend Derek at our usual hangout. We met in business school, and now he owns his own plumbing firm. We discussed supplier difficulties, employee management, and expansion strategies. You understand, true business matters, not Instagram follower counts. Derek seemed doubtful when I told him about my father's call. "It sounds like a trap. If you don't show up, you've skipped Mother's Day. If you show, they'll think you're imposing." Sophie, who joined us after finishing with a customer, concurred. "Your sister has been posting all week about a major Mother's Day surprise." Sophie follows Chelsea on social media solely to gain intelligence. He compares it to keeping track of a highly unpredictable weather system. Derek's remarks stayed with me. I needed an irresistible gift. Then I remembered a conversation from years before. Mom had mentioned wanting to go to Skyrock, a posh wellness center near Sedona, stating it was her ideal getaway but too pricey. Dad laughed it off. Maybe when we win the lottery. The next morning at work I looked up Skyrock Sedona. They offered a rejuvenation weekend package, 3 days and 2 nights of spa treatments, guided meditation, hiking, and all meals included. $3,800 for 2 persons. Years ago that amount would have covered my whole emergency savings. Nowadays, I can write a check without blinking. Business was good. We just completed a $230,000 backyard project for a tech executive, which came in under budget and ahead of schedule. The client has already referred to friends. I booked the package for the weekend following Mother's Day. I put down my parents' names and paid in full. They even arranged for champagne in their suite. For once, I was looking forward to a family gathering. I should have known better. Sophie and I drove 2 hours from Phoenix to Tucson on Sunday morning. I informed Diego that I would be unavailable for the entire day, which was unusual given that I generally take client calls 7 days a week. As soon as I turned onto my parents' street, I realized something was wrong. Both sides were lined with automobiles. I counted at least 15 vehicles, including my aunt's Range Rover and my uncle's ludicrous Hummer, which he purchased for off-roading but has never left a paved road in its life. I located a place 3 homes down and approached with the package holding the retreat reservations. Sophie stands by my side, looking stunning in a modest blue outfit. She squeezed my hand, sensing my stress. The front door was unlocked, so I let myself in and followed the noise to the garden. As I approached the patio doors, I heard my uncle say, "I thought Logan wasn't coming today." My father then continued, "He said he couldn't make it. Probably for the best. That douche would just bring down the mood with his contractor stories. At least we have Chelsea here, showing us her new presentation." I froze, hiding behind the doorframe. Sophie tightened her grip on my hand. The backyard was renovated. Tables were decked with extravagant flower arrangements. A "Happy Mother's Day Linda" banner and catering personnel were preparing what appeared to be a gourmet dinner. At least 30 people congregated on the professionally groomed patio, which I had offered to remodel for free, but they declined since your sister's friend knows a guy. My cousin Jared noticed me first. "Holy Logan is here. Welcome, brother." Everyone's head turned. My father swiftly recovered with a dismissive, "Just joking around, son," before turning away to chat to my uncle as if I weren't even present. When I stepped into the backyard, the murmurs began instantly. Comments about showing up empty-handed, still driving the same truck, and how Chelsea recently received a large investment for her software. I heard statements such as, "Must not be doing as well as he claims," and "Still has dirt under his fingernails." The last one was correct. I'd been assisting a crew with some masonry the day before because one of the guys had called in ill. The proprietor continues to get his hands dirty as needed. Imagine that. I noticed Chelsea holding court near the bar, wearing enormous designer sunglasses and beckoning to a group of relatives. When she noticed me, she sneered and muttered something to our cousin, who laughed. Then her gaze fell on Sophie and rolled swiftly. I approached Mom at the main table. She frowned and inquired, "Why didn't you call about coming?" Then she stared at my hands. "You hadn't even brought anything for your mother. Wow. Very classy." She then turned to Sophie with a phony smile. "And you've brought your girlfriend. How nice. Did you know it's a family event?" Sophie only smiled back. "I'm his fiancée actually. We got engaged last month." She put up her left hand, displaying the diamond I'd proposed with after obtaining our largest deal yet. I guess our announcement got lost in the mail just like our invitation. I started reaching for the envelope in my pocket, but then I stopped. The setup was clear. This was not a last-minute gathering. This was a scheduled event that I was purposefully excluded from. Suddenly, Chelsea's business colleague Travis approached in another ludicrous turtleneck, despite the 85-degree heat. He looked like a Silicon Valley caricature playing dress-up, complete with those $400 minimalist sneakers that resemble hospital shoes. He made a sarcastic remark about my construction employment, asking whether I'd considered getting into technology because that's where the real money is. This is from a man who has yet to ship a viable product. I casually stated that we had just concluded a project for the company's CFO, who had rejected their app investment. "Hey, nice dude. Brad remarked something regarding your pitch deck's ridiculous projections. Small world." Travis's smug look faded, and Chelsea's gaze narrowed. I found an empty chair near my cousin Jared and approached it, Sophie at my side. Jared has always treated me well. He's a firefighter who despises BS as much as I do. Just as I was ready to sit, Chelsea emerged again, telling me that Travis's seat was available and that I could get a foldable chair from the garage. She looked at Sophie and said, "And I'm not sure where your +1 should sit. We did not arrange for additional." Jared stood up instantly. I'll help you, he promised, following me inside. As we walked to the garage, he said quietly, "What the hell, man?" Dad claimed it was intended to be small. Then Aunt Linda called and said it was all about catering. Every time I inquired who was coming, she changed the topic. Now I understand why. Apparently I didn't make the cut, I explained, grabbing 2 metal folding seats. We returned to the yard and set up at the edge of the patio. Instead of returning to his table, Jared pulled his chair up next to me, a modest gesture that meant more than he imagined. Dad clinked his glass to get everyone's attention, stated that it was time to celebrate our beautiful Linda, and asked everyone to a catered lunch. After the obligatory song and photos, everybody gathered around the catering table. I was ready to join when Dad exclaimed, "Logan, we didn't include you in the caterer's head count. Just get a drink or something." The entire backyard became silent. I glanced at my father, trying to understand what he had just said. "What? Are you fooling me now?" The words came out naturally. He said, "Language, Logan." And yeah, I am not kidding. We spent $35 per person for this meal, and you were not on the list. I looked around, some uncomfortable expressions. Others obviously enjoyed the show, and most people became quite interested in their drinks. Then Mom rose up and straightened her blouse. "We told Logan not to come today. You choose to disregard it. We can't simply make food appear." Jared spoke up. "Mrs. D. Logan, you are welcome to share my dish. I won't eat much anyway." Dad waved his hand dismissively. "No, he showed up uninvited. He can wait until everyone else has finished eating. If there is anything left." I asked, "Since when do I need an invitation to see my mother on Mother's Day? You want me to wait till everyone is done, as if I were a stray dog?" Sophie joined in. "So just to be clear, you are informing your own son that he will not be able to eat at your family gathering because you did not budget for him?" Chelsea stepped in and attacked. "No one asked for your opinion. You do not even belong here. So keep your mouth shut." I pointed to her. "Watch your freaking mouth. You don't get to talk to her like that." "Neither does Logan apparently," Sophie replied. She turned to me and said, "Babe, we can get lunch on the way home. This isn't worth it." That was it. Something inside me has just snapped. Not in a rage, but in a very plain way. Imagine staring at a difficult blueprint and suddenly seeing the solution. Just so you all know, I actually did bring something. I took out an envelope from my pocket and handed it to Jared. "Will you open it for me, bro?" He looked perplexed and gently opened the envelope. His eyes opened when he saw the reservation confirmation. At my request, he read it aloud. "Skyrock Wellness Retreat, Sedona. Premium rejuvenation package for 2. 3 days, 2 nights in a mountain view suite. All meals, spa treatments, and activities included. Guests, Frank and Linda. Total value, $3,800, paid in full." "Holy Logan," he said. Everyone went silent. Several families started checking their phones to confirm the pricing. Aunt Marlene was now scanning through the Skyrock website, her eyes widening at the images. You could have heard a pin drop. Mom's jaw actually dropped open. Then they tried to backtrack. "Logan, we didn't know," Mom stated firmly. I said calmly, "Look. We were joking around," Dad explained. "You know how family is. Sit down, have some food." I remained standing. "That package includes couples massage, guided meditation, hikes, and a private dinner on the terrace overlooking the mountains. Everything Mom mentioned wanting to do someday when you had the money." Travis attempted to interject. "Linda, sometimes the universe works in mysterious ways. Perhaps this retreat could be." "Shut up, Travis," several people said at once. I turned back to Jared. "Those reservations are in my parents' names, but they can be transferred. I'd like you and Emily to have them." Jared was astonished, stating, "This was meant for my parents." His face stated, $3,800 more clearly than any words could. "Not anymore," I stated firmly. "My parents made it crystal clear today where I stand in this family." Dad stepped forward, his face flushed. "You can't do that. Those are our reservations." "Actually, they're my reservations. I paid for them, and I can give them to whoever I want." I turned to Jared. "You and Emily haven't had a vacation since the twins were born, right?" "Logan, please," Mom asked, her voice unexpectedly soft. "We were just surprised to see you. You know we love you. We can all talk about this later as a family." I laughed. "Yeah, sure. I promised Jared that I would call Skyrock the next day to replace the names on the reservation and send him the information. You're making a scene, Chelsea muttered, staring around at the shocked relatives. Number you all made the scene, I said. I'm just finally walking off the set. As I approached the gate to leave Sophie by my side, my cousin Rachel cried out that she was joining us. Rachel is Chelsea's younger sister who relocated to Colorado for a developer position. When I told her she didn't have to leave, she protested, adding, "What they did was completely messed up." And she'd been witnessing this nonsense for years. Someone finally said it. She mumbled, grabbing her jacket. I've been biting my tongue since 2015. Jared joined us and returned the envelope, telling us to keep it secure until tomorrow. He was already texting Emily about the unexpected intentions. To my amazement, my Uncle Ben, my father's younger brother who moved to Alaska and became the family's black sheep, was leaning against my truck. He'd flown down for the occasion, hoping that things had improved in the intervening 10 years. One look at the situation revealed that they hadn't. Some things never change, he remarked, clapping my shoulder. I was about to make my exit too. Mind if I join? The five of us ended up at a local sports bar, ordering copious amounts of food and exchanging family war stories. After cutting off communication with his family, Uncle Ben established a profitable fishing charter business in Alaska. Rachel was crushing it as a software developer. Jared, while happy as a firefighter, was coping with his own family issues. Between bites of a burger that tasted 10 times better than any catered cuisine, Uncle Ben recounted how my parents had always prioritized image over truth. They'd rather have a prestigious daughter who is truly broke than a successful son in a blue-collar profession. Your dad wanted to be an architect but couldn't hack the math, he told you. So he manages grocery stores but pretends he's an executive. Your success reminds him of what he couldn't achieve. Rachel then stated that Chelsea has not had an actual client in over a year. She lived in their basement, making bogus business calls all day and occasionally talking to herself with no one on the other end. She drove for DoorDash 3 times per week, while telling everyone she was networking with executives. Last month she asked me to pretend to be a Silicon Valley investor on a Zoom call, Rachel told me. Wanted me to speak with a British accent for some reason. I refused, so she got mad and blocked me for a week. That explained why they were so disturbed by my achievement. Their golden child was failing, but I was excelling, but they refused to recognize it. It was easier to continue pretending, even when the evidence was right in front of them. Sophie added that Chelsea DM'd her last month asking if we needed a brand ambassador due to her strong social media presence. This came just a week after she ranted on Instagram Live about capitalism exploiting creatives. Sophie did not respond. Sophie's previous post received 8 likes, including one from an NFT bot proposing investment synergy. Sophie showed me the message, and I laughed. You don't hire the person who lit your truck on fire just because you're low on gas. She did not respond. I guess she couldn't find the appropriate filter for that. I almost choked on my water. Chelsea, who had been bashing my business for years, secretly desired to work with me. The irony was simply wonderful. Jared recalled Emily's gallbladder operation while they were behind on their mortgage due to medical expenditures. Someone anonymously paid for it, and they've always wondered who it was. I attempted to change the subject, but Jared persisted. Finally I shrugged and added, You guys fed us every night for a week after I hurt my ankle on the construction site. Emily supervised my dog as I flew to the supplier conference. What goes around comes around, man. Jared explained, and today, they wouldn't even let you eat. We discussed my next steps, full cut-off. Uncle Ben agreed, claiming it was the best decision he'd ever made. The first year is tough, but after that comes freedom, he told me. They will try everything. Guilt trips, health concerns, and financial emergencies. Stay strong. Your true family is seated around this table. Rachel invited Sophie and me to her housewarming party in Denver, promising to introduce us to individuals who aren't complete narcissists. Plus, we can go mountain biking if you're into that, she told me. There's more to life than family drama. For the first time that day, I felt a sense of tranquility. The fallout was immediate. By the time we returned to Phoenix that night, I had 17 missed calls and 32 text messages. I ignored them all and slept the best sleep I'd had in years. First thing Monday morning, I phoned Emma, my attorney. We met when I needed contracts made for my business, and she has since handled a number of legal concerns. I asked her to add a nuclear option to my will and company succession plan, a no-blood clause that explicitly barred my parents and sister from any inheritance or business stake, regardless of circumstances. When she mentioned that this was quite definitive, I simply said, recent events have clarified my priorities. Families are complicated, she added, not asking for specifics. This is why I like Emma. No needless questions. Simply efficient solutions. I signed the papers. My inheritance would be divided among reliable employees such as Diego, a scholarship fund for trade school students, and close relatives such as Jared, Rachel, and Uncle Ben. My parents and Chelsea were specifically excluded, with text suggesting that any attempt to contest would result in a penalty provision directing monies to charities they disliked. Emma proposed environmental concerns, recognizing my sister's duplicity over her carbon footprint. Next, I called Skyrock to transfer the reservation to Jared and Emily. Then I banned my parents' and Chelsea's numbers and returned to work. Business was thriving. We received a contract to create a unique pool and outdoor kitchen for a local news anchor. In the same week, I promoted Diego to operations director and offered him a 15% raise. He had earned it by stepping up during the commotion and keeping jobs on track while I dealt with personal issues. That is what real loyalty looks like. They arrived at my office without an appointment. Laura, our receptionist, buzzed me. Frank, Linda, and Chelsea are here to see you. There is no appointment. They say it's an essential family business. I told her to return them. You might as well rip off the bandage. When they walked in, they didn't resemble the confident people from Mother's Day. Mom seemed fatigued. Dad's posture was sagging, and even Chelsea was untidy. The fancy dress was gone, replaced by what appeared to be regular business casual apparel. I realized I was dressing up for a loan request. Dad nervously complimented my workplace space as he looked about at the modern design with floor-to-ceiling windows that view downtown. Really professional setup, he exclaimed, as if shocked. Are those awards real? He pointed to the wall of industry honor. No, father. I acquired bogus prizes to dazzle clients, I explained dryly. What do you want? Is that how you greet your family? Mom asked. We haven't heard from you in weeks. I cut right to the chase and asked what they wanted. Mom claimed they were concerned about me, but I quickly pointed it out. They came because they wanted something. Chelsea mentioned the familial drama. Aunt Karen wasn't speaking with Dad. Rachel had blocked Mom online, and Uncle Ben had sent everyone an email describing them as hazardous. I grinned and responded, that sounds like your problem, not mine. Dad tried an apology, describing their behavior as inappropriate. I stated that telling someone they can't eat at a family gathering or calling them a loser in front of everyone is completely improper. That was a momentary lapse in judgment, he remarked, as if he were describing failing to signal a lane change. After considerable back and forth, Dad finally revealed that they needed approximately $25,000 owing to financial troubles. That was the true purpose for their visit, not an apology, but a financial request. The pieces snapped into place instantly. When I asked what the money was for, they paused before Dad revealed that it was for Chelsea's wellness app. They had invested their savings as seed money, and the developer required an additional $25,000 to complete the platform. I smiled and rightly anticipated that the first $30,000 was spent on a fancy logo, professional Instagram picture sessions, and gold foil business cards rather than genuine software development. Let me guess. Travis's relative works part-time as a developer for WordPress. I asked. Chelsea's look verified that without using words. Amateurs. There are several of them. I stated that Travis was deceiving them and that they had mortgaged their retirement to pay Chelsea's vanity project without asking a single probing inquiry. I could have introduced you to legitimate developers who would have built a working prototype for $5,000 before you committed another dime, I told you. But you never asked for my expertise, because to you, I'm just the guy who plays with dirt for a living. Hell, for $25,000, I could have hired 2 junior devs and a UI guy off Upwork to build a working MVP with integrated analytics and a feedback loop. Instead, they blew it on logo design, gold foil cards, and paid a vegan TikTok girl to promote it. She removed the video after 36 hours. There are 0 users, no feedback, no product. But at the very least, the app had a vibe. When Mom inquired if I wouldn't help them, I told her that if they had treated me with basic decency, I would have helped without hesitation. I had helped staff during difficult times. I paid for Diego's son's emergency operation without a second thought. But those were the very last individuals I would give money to. It's not about the money, I clarified. I made more than your loan amount last month in profit. It's about the pattern of behavior that led us here. Mom murmured something about family, which I firmly corrected. We share DNA, but that's not the same thing as family. I stood up and remarked that Jared and Emily had a great time at Skyrock. I showed them the images they had supplied, including one of them raising glasses on the Mountain View terrace, which should have been my parents'. Dad became enraged, exclaiming, "That's it? Years of raising you and you just cut us off? You raised me to be self-sufficient, I told you. Congratulations, it worked. Chelsea tried one more time, claiming she had a job offer in Chicago and required $3,000 for an apartment security deposit. I merely complimented her and advised her to contact a bank for a loan. Banks require income verification, she mumbled. So do I said. Mom made one final plea, claiming they recognized they had made a mistake and wanted a second chance. I offered to email them the name of a financial expert who helps people restructure debt and promised to pay for the initial appointment. That was it. Dad complained that wasn't enough. I said calmly, "It was more than you deserved." I then requested them to leave. If you ever want a real relationship based on mutual respect, rather than what I can do for you, the door remains open, I told you. But it'll be on entirely new terms. Diego checked on me after they had departed. I informed him I was doing better than excellent and inquired on his house hunting progress. When he brought up the challenging market, I offered a friends and family discount on renovations to help make a fixer-upper more reasonable. "Are you sure you want to mix business with friendship?" the man inquired. "You're not a friend," I responded. "You're family." Months have passed. My parents occasionally attempt to contact me through other relatives, but I have made my attitude plain. Instead of the family I was born into, I've created something better. A community of people who genuinely value one another. Last weekend I flew to Denver to celebrate Rachel's housewarming. Uncle Ben traveled down from Alaska. Jared and Emily drove up from Tucson. Sophie and I completed our wedding plans while we were there. The event will take place next month at a site overlooking Camelback Mountain. We have already determined that my parents and sister will not be invited. My company recently broke ground on our most ambitious project yet, a total backyard remodel for a former NFL player that will be featured in a home magazine. We're opening a second site next quarter, and I'm bringing on Diego as a junior partner. He almost broke down when I informed him. He said he never anticipated operating a business in America when he crossed the border a decade ago. As for my parents and Chelsea, I learned via Jared that Dad's wellness app investment has been depleted. The developer vanished with the money. Chelsea's job offer inexplicably fell through. They are informing everyone that I abandoned the family in their time of need. But here's the thing. For the first time in my life, I don't care what others say about me. I'm too busy making something genuine, which it turns out, is pretty important. Sophie and I will marry next weekend after the dust has settled. We're keeping it small, just for those who genuinely support us. Uncle Ben is officiating. Diego is my best man. Rachel is helping to keep everything in order. Jared and Emily are bringing the twins. There's no drama, no passive-aggressive remarks. Nobody told me I couldn't eat the food at my own wedding. We even had designated seats. Sophie's friend created the calligraphy cards. When one of Jared's cousins playfully inquired if Chelsea had a seat, I simply smiled and answered. Didn't budget for extras. Uncle Ben almost snorted his drink. The table cracked. It seemed like justice, but quiet.